In this episode, we talk about all the penalties in the playoffs, or lack thereof, the top defensemen, how well they've been playing in these semifinals. As well, we break down the series. The Vegas Golden Knights versus the Montreal Canadiens, and the New York Islanders versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. Hit the music. Welcome to Jablam Sports Hockey, folks. I'm your host, Peter Borjaranov, and the mic is always on. You can find me on Twitter at Russia98. You can find the full show at Jablam Sports. If you have any questions or comments, please tweet us. Use the hashtag Jablam Sports. That's JABLAM Sports. Please subscribe to us if you haven't done so yet, and click on the three dots in your podcasting app. Share our show with three hockey fans you know. Thank you, everyone. Remember, check out our website. Go to jablamsports.com. See all our podcasts and even game notes for each episode. You'll get links to all the things we mentioned on this show, including guests. For our podcasts, click on podcasts and then hockey on this show specifically right on our website. All right, in semifinals number one, joining to discuss the Montreal Canadiens versus the Vegas Golden Knights is Gibby. He's one of the three from the podcast Hab Listen. Interesting name there, Gibby.
Thank you.
You can also find him on Twitter at TheRealGibby05. Is it 05?
0505, however
05?
you want to.
Yeah. So why number 5? Is it like number 1 to 4 were taken and you had to go with the 5? Or is there a specific number I'm supposed to remember on the habitant with number 5?
No, so my nickname actually stems from John Gibbons, for the Toronto Blue Jays manager. Yeah. Cool. So my buddies, we were all just having a couple of beers in the backyard, and they noticed when I was walking, I kind of had like a little Gibby waddle. I don't know if you remember the waddle that he would use to go to the mound. So then they ended up calling me Gibby, and Gibby stuck. And then Gibby's number was actually number 5. So I just put 05. That's where Gibby was born.
Nice. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. I just remembered, I think Jordan Ciccelli, she finished the program that I'm in right now, currently sports journalism at Centennial College. She just got a cameo. I guess she paid for it for John Gibbons. So if you see on George Ciccelli's Twitter right now, she sent it, and Gibbons is like, I don't know why you're getting me to say have a good day, but have a good day from Texas, John Gibbons.
He's a beauty, man. He's awesome. He's honestly awesome. It's hilarious.
Everybody loves Gibby. That's for real. That's for real. All right. So the Golden Knights win in overtime against the Canadiens, Game 4, tying up the series at 2. Now it's making it a best of 3. Oh, man. I was going to talk a little bit like Vegas and Habs, but I do want to touch base on, like, for your own thoughts. It's pretty interesting, and I think Twitter at least blew up a little bit for Coach DeBoer gambling and then paying off with the whole Robin Lehner thing. It was just like, is it round 2 of like Marc-Andre Fleury getting stabbed in the back again, and the agent's about to like post another tweet? And then there's Robin Lehner, and we all saw what he did in the only game he played in the playoffs was against the Avs in the first game after a long series against the Minnesota Wild, 7 games. They played practically like the next day, Game 1, and it's just like DeBoer kind of threw Robin Lehner under the bus. The energy for the team was not there. They allowed 7 goals. You can't really blame him. And then he puts him in this, I guess, I don't know if it's like, Fleury kind of flubbed that one. We all saw that behind the net for the previous game. So they comes in and puts him in. Wow. I guess it was a great move. It was a good gamble.
I mean, the gamble paid off, right? It looked good. I'm wondering if it was a coach's decision or if maybe DeBoer had a conversation with Fleury, like, listen, how's your head? Where's your head at? And maybe Fleury was kind of like a little hesitant. So that's kind of forcing DeBoer's hand. But I mean, this is exactly why the NHL, you see a lot of teams going to the 1A, 1B option now, right? You got a lot of tandems in the NHL and a lot of success running from that. So always pays off, right?
It's crazy. I think even after the game on Twitter, and like a lot of people were like baffled by the move. And I think it was Keith Olbermann tweeted that it was like, oh, the series is over now kind of thing with Leonard coming in.
Yeah.
After Elliot Friedman tweeted that Leonard is going in. And so after the game, I think it was after the game, Robin Leonard tweeted back at Olbermann. And we're going to post all the things we mentioned on the show. We're going to post Gibby's Twitter handle and everything on the episode page for this. It's season 6, episode 28 already, for JablamSports.com. So yeah, he posted back the panda tweet, the GIF. Back at him. That's hilarious.
Yeah. I don't understand why everybody like was talking so poorly of him. It's not like he's a bad goalie. I don't understand it. Like, obviously, you can question the decision to go, like, to change the route of the coaching decision to change the goalie, but like, it's not like he's a bad goalie. It's not like you're throwing in like a fresh out the juniors goalie. Like, he's a quality goalie, so I don't understand what the big fuss is.
It's not like he was nominated for the Vezina or anything like recently, was he?
Right? Seriously, like, I don't understand it, man.
It's not like he won 9 games in a row during the regular season, did he?
Seriously. I don't understand
Baffling. So he was phenomenal. But for Montreal, I kind of did want to touch base on, what do you think? If Montreal can pull this off, I find this interesting. In the first round, Brendan Gallagher gets nicked in the face. He's bleeding from the mouth. Then you have Jeff Petrie in his eye. Yeah. And then you have the high stick to Corey Perry and him coming out on the ice, blood gushing and congratulating his team with the big win. Yeah. Who's next to get a bloody face on this team? And if they do pull it off and win the cup, you know for sure all those faces will be on visuals representing the NHL playoffs for the end of time.
Yeah. It's like look at all these guys that went to war to win the cup type of thing.
Oh my goodness. It's insane. Who's next though? Who's next on the list to get bloodied up in the face?
Seriously, and to go without any like discipline or repercussion, right? Because like, I mean, like the way you like, there's no way to spin it. Like Corey Perry took a high stick to the face, and he got stitches on his nose. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like that's a penalty, right? So man. I don't understand what's going on with the officiating, and it's not. You know what? Like all bias aside, it's not even with just the Habs. Like I've seen it. Like even there's some penalties that should have been called against Montreal, and even all of a couple of games that I've been watching in and out in just NHL playoffs, like in general. Like I felt like the officiating's just been poor. Like it's just there's no consistency.
It's tough. It's really tough. Like the Corey Perry thing, I was questioning it because two things. The puck was bouncing in front of his face. And number two, I thought maybe Marchessault's stick slightly grazed off of Perry's stick and hit him in the face. So I was like, if that does actually happen, it's not a penalty. But there were so many times I thought there could have been boarding calls.
Yeah.
So many guys, like, and we call them, I like to joke with the Habs and say there's a couple of Smurfs on this team. But they're getting squashed on the boards. And it's ridiculous. Like I don't know how you can call ticky-tack slashes, and I feel bad. And in my opinion, if it's regular season, those are penalties to Suzuki and Kakanyemi or whatever. Yeah. But the boardings, it's like, man, you gotta call those. Like those are dangerous. Those are like sometimes you're lucky that they're that young and that agile that they'll bounce right back up. Yeah. These guys are like, later on in the years, they're going to be Mikhail Grabovskis. And it's just like, your body can't handle it after 20 of them, you know?
Yeah, man. and for a league that really preaches player safety and this and that, like it really, like actions speak louder than words, right? They don't really care too much as they say they do when it comes to player safety. Because a lot of these boarding penalties, some of them, could be really nasty. And we've seen a few nasty boarding calls over the year, but like I think they just need to tighten it up a little bit more. And I think the NHL definitely needs to sit down with the officiating and try and see where they can tighten up and be a little bit more strict with the calls.
And it's hard for the referees. The players are faster, they're bigger, they're stronger. These guys are like Superman. They've got equipment that's like hard plastic that makes them like Superman as well. Nothing like the 70s and back in the day. And then it's hard for the referees to call the games because they're faster. And then we all have our 4K TVs, 10K, whatever is coming out next. And we see every single detail. And big ups. I can't believe I just said big ups to the producers and the directors at Sportsnet or wherever you're watching your hockey game in the States, because they're getting the visuals. I love my friends, my EVS operators. Shout out to Justin, that are getting those clips so quick, and we're seeing them much faster, much quicker, and then maybe that some of these NHL referees, at least on the ice, can see.
100%.
And I think the league has to have a person in place to be able to call down to the referees and saying, this is what happened on the last whistle. You need to call that. That might be something that needs to be worked on in the future. I don't know how. Yeah. It's hard. But if it's so blatant, you got it.
Yeah. Even like similar to what soccer does now with the VAR, right? So I think they should introduce something similar to that. Obviously, you can't do something exactly like that, but it definitely needs to change. I do agree. There should be like a person above everybody else, like that sees everything in slow motion and checks if there is a penalty. And the only issue with that is like you can't really stop the game, right? And like during the play, the guy's gonna be looking at it and be like, oh wait, this guy had a penalty, right? So like now you got to go back. It's a very like cloudy area, but I think I do agree with you. I think something needs to be done.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, you just gotta be like, God, is that you? Did you just see what happened? So you're hoping the hockey gods are watching, and then you get the call the next time. But seriously. I don't know some of these like I don't know what I haven't looked recently at the edge in power plays, but hey, at least they're right? So I think did they already beat the record? I think it was 11 straight kills.
I believe
they tied the record.
Yeah.
So
I think so. Yeah.
The Canadiens are shutting them down, and if you look at the overall series, the defense for Vegas is getting all the goals. It's like I think going back to game one, I think they had a couple of defensemen who had goals in that game. Martinez, Holden, Theodore, McNabb, obviously more recently, and then Pietrangelo with 3 of them. I think it's except for Matthew Roy, he has like a couple in this series. You can't go back. You have to go back all the way to game one. Matthias Janmark had a goal in game one. So Roy is the only forward that has a goal since game one. And I know everybody likes to say, oh, Philippe Deneau doesn't have any goals. Gallagher, where is he? I don't see him in the offense. But they're shutting down Stone. They're shutting down March. So they're shutting down those top guys on Vegas. Isn't that good enough?
I mean, we'll see how the series plays out, right? I think the issue that Montreal is running into now is the fact that they were able to shut down top guys in the Leaf series, and then as well as like fortunately Scheifele was out, and then guys like Wheeler and Ehlers and all those guys, like we were able to minimize the damage that they bring with offense. But I think the issue that we're running into is the defense is putting up the offense now for them. And like, how do you really shut that down? Like, you know what I mean? It's tough. Like, I mean, we knew it was going to happen. Vegas is such a well-rounded team. So I think this might be our kryptonite here.
Yeah, you got those big guys on the back end, right? You got Sherratt, you got Petrie, you got Weber. So you got to clear the crease so Price can see those shots. That is what it is. We saw it with that goal from the point on the rebound. I think it was it Caulfield on the rebound No, I'm mixing it up right now. I need to get some sleep. But the easy rebound because of the nice screen on Price, and Price had no chance whatsoever when he's fully screened with the shot right between the legs of the forward there on that goal on the rebound. So it's like, what are you gonna do? And that's what they need to do if there's those point shots are gonna get through. You're gonna need your big boys to clear the crease so Price can see those shots.
Yeah, for sure.
So where can the Canadiens find that offense then? If that's where it's dipping and that's where they need to. I know Toffoli he's trying. Caulfield's playing really well, but he can't do everything. Where can you get more offense?
I mean, you got to kind of look at Gallagher, right? I mean, he's known as around the league as like a 20, 25 goal scorer, 30 goal scorer. He's hit a few times. I get it. He's got that hand injury, and I'm sure that's bothering him, and he's kind of hesitant. But I mean, we need some offense, and I think you got to look at guys like Gallagher and don't get me wrong, I still think that we're playing a very good series, but I think, and I said it from the beginning, in order for us to get past Vegas, we're going to need to play an almost perfect series, and we're getting it from everywhere else. And like, it's not like we're playing poorly. I mean, it's kind of ironic though. And I kind of saw this coming in game 4. The Habs outplayed Vegas in my eyes. And then they ended up losing in overtime. And then you look at game 3. Game 3 was a complete reverse where Vegas was outplaying and Montreal ended up winning. So it's kind of like it's literally like a flip coin at this point, or a coin flip. Sorry.
Yeah.
I need some sleep too, apparently.
Yeah, it's all right. So what is Gallagher not doing that he needs to do in the game that he was obviously more successful during the regular season, but he needs to do in the playoffs to get those goals?
Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I think he needs to get a little bit dirtier in front of the net. I feel like he's there, but he's also not. Like, he's not 100% Gallagher in front of the net. And again, that could come with the injury, or that just could come with his line mates and the way that he's playing. Like, I mean, you have Lehkonen, who has been good. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, let's be realistic. He's not exactly an offensive player, as well as Danault. Danault is your shutdown guy, right? So it's kind of like, it's a mixture of things. It could be the injury, it could be his line mates. But again, like, when it comes to the shutdown role, that line you can't really tinker with because it's been so successful. So I guess you got to kind of look to guys like Suzuki. You got to look at, you know what, you got to look at Kotkaniemi as well. Kotkaniemi needs to kind of rekindle and find that scoring touch again that he found in the first couple games that he got called back in. I don't get me wrong, I feel like Anderson has been doing well. That Anderson, Byron, and Kotkaniemi line has looked good, but I think they need to start putting the puck in the back of the net a little bit more.
Yeah, Anderson really can drive the net, but needs a little more finish to his game. Again, you can find Gibby on Twitter at TheRealGibby05. Thank you for stopping by, Gibby.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this very much.
And in semifinals number 2, joining to discuss the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the New York Islanders are Michael Schweinlein. He's the host of the Islanders Faithful podcast. You can find him on Twitter at Faithful Isles. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
And back on the show, Justin Godfrey. He covers the Lightning for Raw Charge, a part of SB Nation. You can find him on Raw Charge on Twitter at Raw Charge. Welcome back to the show, Justin.
Thanks for having me back, man.
Wow. What a game, guys. It was an 8-0 thumping. I don't know if anybody expected this one at all. I had a feeling Islanders might play good, but then at the last second, I was like, all right, my mind says Tampa has this. They're going to score a fair bit of goals. Did not see 8-0. Insane.
Justin probably saw that coming, though.
Not quite 8. I had a feeling the offense was going to break out a little bit. But, yeah, I don't think anyone thought 8 was coming. I think I told somebody something like 4-1, 4-2 was my feeling before the game today.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's just that. I don't know. it was one of those games where all the bounces kind of went their way.
Yeah,
and they just kept piling it on. So
bounces were happening their way. And before we get to some more offense and how maybe Stamkos and his interview question kind of pushed a button there. Maybe it pushed a button. But I think another thing everybody's going to be talking about is the Matt Barzal situation in the game. All right, so he took a few slashes from Jan Ruta in front of the net, and then as they were getting off the ice for their line change, Barzal kind of cross-checks him, and then he gets him again and gets him in the face. He got a major, and he's got out of the game. Does anybody expect any supplemental discipline? No?
I mean, I brought it up on my timeline on Twitter, and my fellow fans were kind of giving it to me hard because I didn't like how Barzal, after the cross-check or glove to the face, because it was kind of hard to see on the replay, and I'm sure Justin will have his view on everything. You know, Islander fans have their view on the call as well. But I didn't really like how Barzal kind of brushed the linesman's hand away at first. And then I saw that Hedman was kind of making a beeline for him. So I think it was more of a defensive posture type of a move to free himself up to be able to defend himself. I also brought up how in this playoffs this year, it's been like a wheel of punishment because you don't really know what the player safety is going to do, what the referees are going to do. It seems like it changes period to period, sometimes shift to shift about what's a penalty and what's not. So the Islanders saw lots of uncalled penalties against Boston go in their favor with some $5,000 fines. And then obviously we saw all that stuff with Butch Cassidy and $25,000 there. So I'm hoping as an Islander fan, we don't lose him for game 6, because that would be a huge loss. You can't really replace Barzal's speed and the talent that he has and with all his edge work and everything. So I'm hoping for a $5,000 fine. I guess, we'll be watching The Wire tomorrow at 12 o'clock to see what the Department of Player Safety comes up with.
Yeah. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I was going to say, honestly, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I thought the misconduct, getting him booted out of the game, probably the correct call, definitely the correct call. I don't see any future punishment coming. I definitely don't think he's going to get suspended. I would be surprised if he got a $5,000 fine, and honestly, I'm okay with it. I think it was the right call to make on the ice for once in this playoff. And so I think, it kind of reminded me of last year when Kucherov took the extra slash on Peugeot after the empty net goal. Game 4 or 3 or something like that. You could tell it was a lot of frustration. I was kind of half watching it at that point, and I saw it on the replay. And I don't think the incident with the referee was intentional. I don't think he's going to see anything extra for that. I think it was the shot to the face. I think there was a little game management going on with the refs. They could see this game getting out of hand, and they didn't want him, they didn't want to escalate more than it was going from there. So they figure, hey, we're going to review this, we're going to watch it, and we feel it justifies kicking him out of the game. Maybe that'll simmer things down a little bit, which happened for, I don't know, most of the rest of the period. And then there was a little fracas at the end, but in an 8-0 game, that's going to happen. So yeah, I think they got it right for once. So I'm kind of happy with that.
Yeah, it was a good call. I'm expecting maybe a $5,000 fine. I don't think a suspension, because how can you take out a guy like Barzal in such a vital big game 6? The money is there to be had. The viewers are there to be had. You don't want to take that guy out there. So I don't think the NHL is going to touch that at all.
And based on what we've seen already in this playoffs, we've seen people do way worse and not get suspended. So yeah, I doubt it. Yeah, I doubt he gets anything, and I don't think he deserves it. So, I'm hoping he's there for game 6. And
how much, in your opinion, too, how much was Ruda being shelved for the remainder of the period there and pretty much the game? Because he missed the whole third period, if I'm not mistaken. How much do you think was John Cooper maybe playing that close to his vest for a little bit of gamesmanship?
I think there's probably a mix. Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, we saw Cernak was out today, or Chernak was out today. So the right side of the Lightning defense gets really thin after Ruda. I mean, Shen was in. Shen plays well in spurts, but after that, it's, you're looking at a rookie Cal Foot. So I think there's a little game management there on Cooper's part as well. There's no need to have Ruda out there if he doesn't need to. Save him for the rest of the series. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we look at the ice time. I haven't had a chance to look at the numbers or anything afterwards, but I think there was a lot of load management, to borrow an NBA term, going through on that third period.
I can tell you what I'm not going to do after we're done here is look up any of the stats, because aside from the hits and attempted shots, I'm pretty sure that those are the only two categories the Islanders were.
Yeah.
Any meaningful stats on the stat sheet.
Yeah, that's what we might get into then. So after watching such good defensive play, even in, say, last game, it's crazy, the difference. Last game, Ryan Pulock made maybe the best game-saving stop we've seen throughout the playoffs. The amazing, yet maybe a little slow, sprinterama by Ryan McDonough around the defenseman. I don't know what Semyon Varlamov was doing on that one. He was a little fishing, but Pulock with a great glove save there to stop them right at the end of the game. 3-2 win in the last game, but tonight was obviously the opposite, with all the offense going back and forth and flying on all cylinders. So I want to touch base on that. Stamkos was asked last game if he was maybe injured or anything. He kind of brushed it off like he wasn't. And I feel like it might have pushed some buttons there, because this is probably the best Stamkos we've seen in a very long time tonight.
Yeah, so with Stamkos, just based on his history, there's always going to be questions about his health. Mm-hmm. And somebody had mentioned on Twitter, one of the Lightning fans said something about, well, he only played 12 minutes. Wonder if he's hurt. And I kind of looked up his ice time prior to the game today, and he hasn't been logging a lot of minutes. Even strength time, he's averaging around 10 or 11 minutes. Mm-hmm. He gets a lot of his time now since he's been devoted to the second line. A lot of his time's coming on the power play, and the Lightning just haven't been getting many. The Isles have been playing disciplined. And so if they're not getting a ton of power play time, his ice time is going to look off. And from the way he's moved about, I don't really think – I'm not too worried about an injury. There might be something minor, but at this point in the season, everyone's dealing with that. He's just a streaky scorer. And so he'll go 3-4 games without showing up on the ice. And that line – there's a talking point pretty much for this series, is that line needed to produce more. And that's Cirelli and Kilroy as well. Mm-hmm. And when they're feeling it, and when they get a step, and if Coop can get a good matchup for them, they could do what they did tonight, where they just, kind of take over a period. They kind of did the same thing in game 2. Look at the stats there. They had a dominating game in game 2 with the Lightning won. So, yeah, game 3, I think. This is one of them. You just look, and they absolutely dominated the advanced stats. So they're streaky. I'm not surprised that they came out and had a good game, because they do really good at bouncing back. And it's kind of been funny this postseason, where someone will question, like earlier it was the defense isn't scoring. Next game out, defense scores 2 goals. Mm-hmm. The Stamkos line isn't scoring. They come out 2 goals. So they if someone brings up something, they almost take it personal and go ahead and execute the next game.
I've noticed that too, and I think I agree with you there. I think that they're getting the favorable matchups at home, because Trotz is going to get the later change or the early change there. So Cooper's going to get the favorable matchup that he wants, where he can't get on the road. And the Islanders have struggled with that at times throughout the season, and particularly the postseason. So I think you'll see a little bit different load management from the Islanders side here, moving back to the Coliseum on Wednesday. And barring any injuries and suspensions that we talked about previously, I think we're going to be shaping up for another hard-fought game. And I still see the series going 7 games. I don't see the Islanders, especially moving back home, one more game at the barn. I don't see them rolling over. I expected a pushback from Tampa today. It was definitely an emotional game, an emotional way to lose the game, as we talked about as well, off McDonough's stick. So, the Islanders were going to come into tonight with the momentum. We knew Tampa was going to push back as fans and as Lightning fans too. So it was kind of expected. It's going to be one of those series where it's kind of going to go back and forth, and it's going to come right down to the wire at the end. At least I'm hoping, as a hockey fan.
If you're expecting a game in the series to go back and forth, why are we even watching any of the games after the first goal? Because it just seems like whoever scores the first goal wins these games. Why are we staying tuned to the rest of the game, Michael?
I mean, if you watch tonight, obviously, like we said, we didn't expect an 8-goal outburst out of Tampa. I mean, there were people in the media that have said from the very beginning, Tampa always bounces back from a loss. Vasilevsky is now 12-0 on games following a loss. So, I mean, that's something else that you have to look out for. And, again, who expected Varlamov to let up a goal? I mean, Islander fans do in the first 3 or 4 shots, because it's happened multiple times during the playoffs, but it's never been a problem. They stop the scoring at 2 goals. They clamp down. They fight tooth and nail back into games. That's just the way that they play, game in, game out. So once Tampa got that 3rd goal, it's still not an insurmountable hill for them to climb, but it just kept coming and it just never stopped. And goaltender change, and you think that's going to help, and it looks like it does. The Islanders hit 2 posts, but it's reasons like that we continue to watch, I think, as fans.
Yeah, I think when you look at the records, I think it's like when the team scores first, I think one of the teams has like 5 wins and 1 loss, and the other team is like 10-0 or something in these playoffs. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's crazy that it's just like the first goal of the game, and especially that early with Stamkos's, it was all pretty much said and done. I was like, all right, well, when's the next game? Moving on.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So the other thing I want to touch base is on how do the Islanders kind of regroup, Michael? I know they're going back to the barn, so they will have their fans back. Did the feistiness in the rest of this game, especially at the end of the game, kind of help them move on and get them ready for the next game, or?
I think so. If you listen to I don't know if you guys were able to listen to the post-game comments from Trotz, but he said it doesn't matter what the final score is, a win is a win, so it's easier to move on when it's a blowout as opposed to a 1-goal close nail-biting game or a game you lose in overtime. So I think you'll see them move on. I believe the fact that they were so physical towards the end of the game shows that they still have a lot of fight left. It's not like they're just going to roll over the fact that they lost 8-0. So that's a positive sign. You never want to see a team just kind of lackadaisically finish a game, and then there was a little bit of feistiness. Zizekas got cross-checked there by Gaudreau, and, the whole rest of the line came to his defense, and things kind of got out of control. There was a lot of pushing and shoving and, hey, look at the scoreboard type comments there. And obviously incensed some of the Islanders in that regard too. And it's not even the first time this series where we saw a little bit of taunting from Tampa's side.
Yeah, they definitely have a little bit of swagger these days. And obviously that's the main difference we've seen over the last 2 years as opposed to the prior years where they kind of struggled in the postseason. Everyone remembers the sweep at the hands of the Blue Jackets. But if you look at the years before that, they went into the Eastern Conference Finals with, 3 games to 2 lead and ended up losing game 6 and 7 against the Caps and I think against the Penguins as well. So, they kind of had to develop that swagger a little bit. I can see it as off-putting to other teams, definitely. But it's just kind of a mindset that they have now that, nobody's going to come in and push them around anymore. I think they got a little sick of being called a talent team and they're a finesse team and they're all offense and there's no grit. And to use an overused phrase, but lately it's just been they're if you push them, they're going to push back, and if they have something to brag about, they're going to brag about it. They've really taken on kind of the personality of Pat Maroon when he's come over. So
you can't even leave out this important fact. It's the second conference final in a row that the Islanders and Tampa are facing off. And it's also the third time in 4 seasons that they're meeting in the playoffs. So there's a lot of history there. I mean, there's been a rivalry. The Islanders have played Tampa in the playoffs previously and lost.
I was actually thinking about that the other day. I was like, how many times have they played Matt Martin, Casey Cikas, that line? I was like, I don't like that line anymore just because we see them so much. You know, it's like they've got to have the most games played against the Lightning in the postseason as a line. So there's this. You know, we always bounce back and forth between who's the Lightning's rival, right, quote unquote. And it's never going to be the Islanders. You guys have too long of a history with other teams. But when you meet in the playoffs year after year like this, you know, that's how kind of the bad blood develops. So
I think it's fun, and it's one of those quirks that makes hockey just that much better, especially in the postseason. You know, like you have your regular season division rivals like the Islanders and the Rangers, Tampa and Detroit. So, you know, you got all those fun storylines during the season because you're going to face these teams 8 and, you know, in regular season times 6 or 5 times. Right. So, you know, it makes it fun because it carries over into the regular season, the following season under normal circumstances. Right. So, you know, I don't mind the little extracurricular activities. Look, I play hockey. I've played my whole life. I know how it works. You know, I might say something stupid on Twitter or, you know, write about it or talk about it on the podcast, but it's to just get discussion out there and to get people riled up and talking, because that's the whole point of why we do these things. Exactly.
And there's, you know, and I think the rivalry has been, it's, you know, there's been moments, but I don't think it's really crossed the line anywhere. You know, there hasn't been, you know, of course, every hit on Twitter is a dirty hit, but I don't think there's been anything that's been egregious on either side. So it's, you know, they're two teams that probably don't like each other. And you had the added benefit of they didn't have any regular season games to play this year. They've gone back-to-back conference finals. And I know the Islanders felt like they had something to prove after a close series last year, which, you know, a bounce or two either way. And it's the Islanders advancing to, you know, the Stanley Cup. So
it's funny you talked about bounces too, because you mentioned it earlier. And I kind of laughed to myself because I said, you know, every game it seems that bounces have gone off to both teams in certain respects of the game. But tonight it was just like, it seemed like it was all Tampa. Islanders hit a couple of posts. Every shot was right into a lane or a stick or a skate. And I joked around on Twitter and I had said, look, they got all the bad bounces out of the way in one night.
Exactly.
So just that's it. Move on, you know, let them get on the plane, get a good night's rest, get a good practice in tomorrow, and move on.
I mean, I think it was early. It was early in the second. It was 3-0, and Brock Nelson had that look at the open net, and he just hooked it wide. And it was like, if he scores there, it's 3-1. Islanders are feeling better about themselves. The Lightning are back on their heels a little bit, and you know, maybe the complexion of the game changes. It wouldn't be that much different than Game 4, where, you know, the Lightning mounted their little comeback there. So. Yeah, it's a bounce here. As much as skill has to do with it, these two teams are evenly matched. I don't care what anybody else says. I mean, both teams deserve to be there. Both teams aren't that far off, and a bounce here, a bounce there, you know, changes the series. So,
I want to touch base right before we leave, though. You mentioned about Tampa kind of changing their team a little bit of the culture. They were the skill team, but they've had to change their game a little bit, become a little bit dirty, become a little bit grittier. But that rubs the rest of the league's fans and maybe even some media the other way, right? So you could easily say that a lot of fans love Tampa Bay. They love the skill. They loved watching the fast-paced game. And now they are deterred. It's both the grit and everything that it takes to go deep in the playoffs and to win, but also winning the cup. And that changes how you look at a team, and you start to hate them. They're like, oh, they won it already. We don't want to see them win already. You're a little bit different when you're a bit the underdog. Islanders or even Montreal, a little bit the underdog. But again, with the same thing, when you don't have high skill, they're like, they're a little bit boring. Why do I want to cheer for this team? I don't like them that much. Is it possible for one of those teams like the old Tampa Bay of 2 years ago, a new team like a Carolina or maybe a Toronto Maple Leafs, to go deep in the playoffs without being that way? Or to start being dirty and still have a lot of fans around the league liking them?
It's interesting because I think if you talk to the players, they'll say it's the toughness that you need. They wouldn't quite refer to it as dirty. I mean, it's just a learning curve. So I think Carolina is a team that's kind of on that edge right now. They remind me a lot of the Lightning a few years ago, where they have a tremendous amount of skill. I don't think the way the league's evolving that you necessarily need to go, quote unquote dirty or anything like that. I think, and I know it's out there a lot. I don't think the Lightning are a dirty team. I think they're a team that will take a shot. I mean, if it's there, they're going to stand up for themselves. You mentioned Goodrow. Coleman's another player like that, where they're going to jam in the boards, and if they can get an extra hit in, they're going to do it. I mean, they're not going to try and injure anybody, but and I think there is a certain line that you need there, and you can still be a skill team. The Lightning are still a skill first team. Mm-hmm. They just also have that quote unquote jam, grit, sandpaper, whatever you want to call it now. And you do need a certain amount of that in order to succeed in the NHL. Not as much as you needed it in the 90s, early 2000s. I remember when the Blues won, everyone's like, okay, we're going to go back to big hockey now, big broody hockey. Mm-hmm. And that's gone away again. But you got teams like Carolina. I think Vegas kind of plays the same way. Toronto, you mentioned.
Boston.
Yeah, but it also helps to have a Vezina quality goaltender in net. I mean, as good as Vasi plays, people tend to forget how many times he bails the Lightning out when they're pinching in. Even tonight, he makes 2 or 3 big saves early, and maybe another goalie doesn't. The Islanders get on the board and it's 2-1 instead of 3-0, and things change. So there's that mix that you need. I think a lot of the animosity towards the Lightning that I've seen this year were some of their salary cap shenanigans, which, did they circumvent the cap? Yes, they did. Did they do it legally? Yes, they did. But, at this point, it's the playoffs. You got to play who's on the ice. So it's, I think once you win one, it gets harder to like a team. Everybody loved Pittsburgh at first, and then they win 2 in a row. It's like nobody likes Pittsburgh anymore. Yeah. So success breeds contempt. So,
and then, for Peter, we got to bring up Toronto and other Canadian teams. So
how does this affect Toronto? Yeah.
So. I think for Toronto, they're more of a finesse team. There is a little bit of grit there. I know defensively they've been looking for somebody. They've wanted a world-class goaltender forever. So I think with all the money they have tied up in forwards, they did lack a little bit of that grit in the playoffs, and they have. So I think ultimately that's where your line of questioning was coming from, and I don't disagree. The play up there in Canada is very similar to the rest of the Northeast and the Southeast. So it's a grinding style, very physical, good off the rush, hard forecheck. And when you don't have those responses to that type of play, it's going to be hard to kind of find any success. You look at the Islanders, and like you said, they haven't really gotten a lot of respect over the years, but they have that fourth line, the best fourth line in hockey. They have a great third line now that they have Pajot. They just have depth from line 1 to line 4, and every line can go out there and play the same way. And that's really only because they lack in the superstar department. So, it's about finding balance. It's about finding that right amount of grit, that right amount of tenacity, the right amount of being able to go out and defend your superstars. So, it's definitely a very important component in building a real cohesive winner. I mean, and just look at Tampa. Then they pick up Savard. You got Maroon again. You got all these big bodies back there who can play that way, and then Cooper can just change, like you saw tonight. Changed the style of play, hard on the forecheck, but then they were able to sit back and kind of just clog the neutral zone the way the Islanders can. And it's kind of maddening to be out Islanders, but you look at what's made these teams successful over the last couple of years, and there's a definite blueprint there. So I think we're all kind of on the same page with that.
Yep. And as we go, I did see some rumors, and I mentioned it how long ago? I think Mitch Marner's first season, saying maybe they should trade him for for Matthew Tkachuk in a first-round pick. Well, maybe that's not possible, but that's the thing that they're missing, and that would have been a good move then, I think, and maybe still a good move now because there are rumors that Matthew Tkachuk might want out of Calgary. So we'll see, and we'll talk about that maybe next week. Again, thank you for joining me, guys. You can find Justin at Raw Charge on Twitter and, of course, on the website, and Michael at the Faithful Isles podcast. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me again.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
I want to thank our guests this week, Gibby, Michael Schroerlein, and Justin Godfrey, as well, breaking down how teams need to adapt and find that grit if they want to go into the playoffs and go deep. Remember, if you've enjoyed anything you've heard in this episode, or don't, please tweet at me or even our guests. You can follow me on Twitter at Russia98 or the entire team at Jablam Sports. If you want, you can also contact us on our website. You can use the hashtag at Jablam Sports, Jablam Sports, that's JABLAM, and our website is jablamsports.com/contact for our contact page there. Please check out our website. Go to jablamsports.com to see all our podcasts and even game notes for each episode, including this one. And you'll get our guests' info and links to things we mentioned on this show. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify. And of course, click on the 3 dots in your podcasting app and share this episode with 3 friends you know. Please and thank you. Also, follow us on our Facebook group, Jablam Sports. Check us out, folks. Thank you, everyone. And to every one of our listeners, I'm giving you a virtual hug. Stay healthy, listen, be yourself, and stay strong.